How are you?
Good morning, Yanis. I am so well. How are you doing?
I'm great. It's wonderful to see you. I'm so excited to talk to you. You've done so much in what is it, 14 years since you graduated? Is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think I graduated 2006. Yes, it has been 14 years.
My memory serves me all right for an old man. I know you've done. I mean, you've done so much. You started in
Mm,
housekeeping, and then you went into
yeah,
innovation, disruption, technology. But I give out too much. I want you to start. Tell us about your hospitality background. Do start from the beginning because I think our students
sure.
will be excited to hear a story like no other.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my first experience with hospitality was as a guest. I'm sure most people are. I believe I went to a Hilton hotel in Southeast Asia and I was a kid. I was in my bathrobe and my swimming costume and I lost my way trying to find a pool. And then someone very kindly in the corridor, one of the members of staff actually took me there. And like this was like literally my first experience where I thought, oh, someone who actually didn't need to do something uh, helped me get to where I wanted to go. And like it wasn't just because it was a five-star hotel. Like, as a kid, you're like, it's a hotel. But it was that very heartwarming experience where I thought I was looked after. And
That's
that was when I
fantastic.
kind of really loved, oh, that kind of customer experience, the feeling that you get as a guest, that is wonderful.
So that's what
Um,
triggered it all. You never had any family that was in the industry or anything like that.
No, I mean, I have my dad's oldest brother was a training manager in Beijing at a hotel back when Beijing is nothing like what it is now. And he was from Hong Kong, doing all the leadership and development and all that stuff. And I remember visiting him. And as soon as we said at the reception or at the cafe that we're here to see him, the person stepped back because he was so scared. But he was the only person in our family who actually worked in any type of hotel environment.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like I've had odd jobs, at restaurants, waitressing here and there. But really, I think it came down to when I was at university and, sorry, when I was at school, not really knowing what I want to do.
Yeah.
At school, they get you to fill out some kind of career profile list, like fill out those questionnaires and the computer spilled out a whole list of options that would be suitable. It was between physiotherapy and hospitality.
Well, they're related, aren't they?
Yeah, so like, no, I don't want to work with people one on one and doing movements. I'll do hospitality.
Brilliant.
It was a very simple choice. And by then, I had quite a few friends who were studying hotel management in Switzerland or in different places. And I thought, you know what? They're having a great time. I'm going to do the same. And I always had it in my head where it gives me the opportunity to travel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that
and
was a huge point.
and then you graduated from Surrey University. I think you were one of my very first, or one of the very first classes I taught. It's like
Really?
I'm now 20 years in academia. I can't believe it. It's like it's crazy. It's crazy. But I remember, those years. There were a lot of good kids, and you were along with the best of them. Um,
Of
and,
course.
and and you went once you graduated, you went into housekeeping, if I remember correctly.
I did the Starwood Vita Futura Management Training Program. So
Right.
back then, Starwood was its own brand. Now it's with Marriott. So it was a very competitive training program to get into. Um, but yeah, so I think out of who knows how many hundreds of people that applied from all around the world, I then did a 2-day assessment in Brussels. So everything paid for. I'm like, oh my God, this is great. But it was very intense. It was interviews, group exercises for 2 days. And then from the 80 odd people that were in those 2 days, I think we went down to 18 to 20 people.
Yeah.
So I was one of those 18 people that did this 18-month program. And then I was able to stay in London, which was very helpful. So I worked at the Sheraton Skyline Hotel, which is at Heathrow Airport.
Cool.
Yeah, and so that was fascinating, because they, the ins and outs, the one night stays at an airport hotel was just crazy. All it took was one cancel flight and 300 rooms are filled, and you have to get people to work the next day. So yeah, so that's really nuts, but it was very, very good for training in that sense because there was so much turnover and the team was very stable as well, in that particular hotel. So they allowed me to just try out whatever that I wanted.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so I did that for about 18 months, and then at the end of that, I went for an assistant housekeeping manager job. This was 2008. Yeah. So just a year-ish before the financial crisis.
There you go. I mean, this is a good moment because we are in another
Yeah.
crisis. So tell everyone who's listening what happened then. Is like, how did you deal with all of that?
So I was the assistant housekeeping manager, and it was great. It was a really good team. As soon as that hit, the building of the hotel, half of the building was owned by Lehman Brothers.
Right.
Yeah, so it was. I mean, it didn't affect day-to-day operations, but on the back that this is a really serious matter. So by the end of that year, there's a whole layer of management, that were made redundant, but they were also some of the most senior people who have been around the longest. And I feel like the consultation period was done really well. They had really good packages, but which also meant that everybody else who were the second in command suddenly had to step up.
Yeah.
So I would say that it is, yes, it's a bit of a disaster for a lot of people, but it's also created a lot of opportunities.
Mm.
Because had that not happened, I don't think I would have been given as much responsibilities,
Yeah.
at that age.
And I think,
Because I was like 23 then.
and that's a great lesson and tip here, that through adversity and at times where things are looking very dark, there's a lot of opportunity. You just have to step up. These are the words you used.
Yeah,
Okay.
100%. And that's like a huge advice that I would take is, if someone asks you to do something, just go and do it.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Like, always do more than what you're paid to do. Not like just aimlessly following like sheep, but just being very conscious about it, that every time someone asks you to do something that's a little bit different or that's out of your area, is an opportunity to learn.
Fantastic. And if I don't know if I'm fasting forward your career here, but at some point you got involved into a disruptive technology. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because a lot of times people
Yeah.
think that the hospitality is only, certain jobs, but actually tell us what you got into later on.
Yeah. So 2013, so this is the other thing when it comes to relationships. When you work well with people, people notice you because people don't want to work with grumpy people or people who are very proud and cocky. So I've just made, really good friends and colleagues over the years. And one of the people that I've worked with was also a management trainee who was in a year above me, but in the same hotel. And we've always been, kept in contact, and we were friends then. So he had an idea of, back then Airbnb was just starting. So people had just kind of started to know about it, but it hasn't really exploded just yet. And so we're thinking that actually we can take the hotel experience and put it into a home.
Mm.
Because at some point with, you don't want to check in to a dirty house.
Yeah.
But there is no way of knowing whether that house is clean or not, at least back in like 2013. So we kind of just started as, just as a trial. We used one of our homes, listed it over Christmas and New Year. I made so much money in those 3.5 weeks. It was basically almost, I think it was only one night vacant. That was free. That otherwise it was almost 100% occupancy.
Fantastic.
And the amount of money covered 2 people's return flights.
Okay.
Long haul flights for their holiday. So we're like, okay, you know what? There is substance to this. It's not just, oh, a side thing. Like it is going to work. It's going to work well because people are not always wanting to stay in hotels. And back then I had super good discounts at these amazing 5-star hotels everywhere. And I do find myself going into certain cities where I thought I'm going to pick an Airbnb because I want to experience a local neighborhood. So I don't feel like staying in the Piccadilly Circus,
Yeah.
equivalent of that city being in a bubble. So we tried that out. So we then kind of started having a cleaner here and there. We started advertising a little bit. By advertising, it was just word of mouth. It was just asking the neighbors.
Yeah.
We had no website, no logo, and like nothing at all. So in that year, so this is like 2014, I was still working my full-time jobs. In fact, most people were still working their full-time jobs and then doing that on the weekends and in the evenings.
Cool.
So yeah, so it exploded from there. I think it's also the right time.
Yeah.
2014. So yeah, so by the time I left in the end of April 2016, we were managing about 2,500 homes in London, Barcelona, Rome, and Paris.
Wow.
Up until then, and then there were other cities after that as well.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's crazy. We had no technology for it. So when people ask me like, how do you start? I'm like, just go on Google.
Yes. That's the thing. The one thing you guys get is research skills and use them. Don't forget you got them. After you've done your degree, you've got great research skills. So
Yes.
you had that, and then again, I'm fast forwarding your career, but you went into international public speaking extraordinaire. You want to tell us about that part of your life story?
Yeah, so when I came out of this particular Airbnb management business, I went on some property investment courses, and they were like, "What? You did this?" I'm like, "Yeah, there was a big team, we hired people, blah, blah, blah." They're like, "But did you realize that you were already in properties?" Hospitality had my
Yeah.
mindset and my perspective was like, I'm in hospitality, but actually I was in real estate and I had no idea. So only when I came out of that, I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And so other people have started asking me to like help them with their business, to speak at their events, so on and so forth. And that's just how it rolled from then on. Yeah, it wasn't like I set myself up to do public speaking. I think after the first or the second time, I thought I actually really enjoy this. It wasn't something that I was always used to growing up. 2 years ago when I went back to my old school for a school reunion, one of my friends was like, I would have never in a million years thought Cherie Kong would stand up and speak in front of people, never mind the number of people that were in the rooms that I was speaking by then.
And today you also have I think you've got a new company, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'm like switching here and there.
I'm sorry I'm doing this with you, but you've done so much. We can't cover everything. But tell us about your latest adventure.
Yeah, so early last year, my father was quite ill and my family lives in Hong Kong. And then I thought, okay, you know what? I need to think about a plan B or plan C of when I need to move back to Hong Kong to look after them. I'm an only child. They don't expect me to, but I think about these things. So I thought, okay, what opportunities there may be for me to start something now so that I have something to go back to. And just travel in between. It just so happens that one of my ex-colleagues from the first hotel that I worked in, the Sheraton Skyline, he introduced me to a good friend of his because he's been following me on social media, and because he's been following the whole Airbnb management, the whole speaking, all of that. He was like, okay, you need to meet my friend Simon. Simon's got loads of business ideas. Really legit, meet up with him when he comes to visit in London. So he did, and we got on like house on fire. And then a month later, I was in Hong Kong, spent 10 weeks over there, and just to see whether there were opportunities in the digital side of things. So I am a non-tech person who have gone into tech.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, look at you there. You're too humble. So So you are now in tech, are you?
Pretty much, yeah. So we have a multidisciplinary digital agency. We build web-based applications.
Brilliant.
So the first couple of clients that we have are ski resorts. So
Excellent.
groups of hotels in Hokkaido, in Japan. So yeah, so that was what I did when I went to Hong Kong. We managed to close this first client, and then it went on from there. But then I had to come back to London because of everything that was happening in Hong Kong, and I really couldn't concentrate. Anyway, so yeah, so we've started helping. We took over a project from them where they had outsourced to some web developers in Southeast Asia, and it was almost a year late. And because it was summer already, they need to get direct bookings for the winter season, and it was just not happening. So we just took over. I hired a couple of developers and just went from there.
Fantastic. And in the midst of all that, do you still do your coaching and mentoring? You still do that?
Not in a structured way.
Right.
So definitely not full time. And actually, I feel like I've stopped a lot of it in the past year. Because I really didn't have the capacity.
Okay.
I was learning something new in terms of project management, tech, all of it. And, the political climate, everything else that's to do with, that was just really sucking away my time and energy. And I actually couldn't concentrate very well. I feel like I wasn't very creative in the past year. I just did not have capacity. So I hadn't really done that. But of course, the odd ones here and there, people that have known me, yeah, I will always pitch in and, offer my advices.
I think the theme that runs through everything you've been telling us is how strong, strong relationships and keeping those relationships warm helps.
Yes.
I guess it helps mentally as well as career-wise. So that's a great bit of advice there. So with all this diverse career, amazing career, what are if you can pick one moment where you'd say, either it's a funny moment or, the most amazing moment that happened in your hospitality life so far, what would it be?
I would still go back to the time when I was in housekeeping, where the department, I was leading about 70 odd people doing the laundry, the housekeeping, and also the maintenance part, because everything that you see at a hotel that's physical, either housekeeping needs to clean it or report the maintenance of it. So I was working with contractors, different departments, so on and so forth. But I think one key moment that just brings me so much joy is so this was in my 20s. We did it twice, where we had to change all the mattresses and all the beds and all the pillows and duvets without closing any rooms.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It worked.
It works. I mean, it always works. It's just logistics. There's lots of spreadsheets and lots of people talking and just lots of organization. But it was 293 beds and over 1,200 pillows.
Wow.
Wow. And we didn't really have the lifts, because it was an old building in the middle of central London. There wasn't really a sufficient lift that was big enough to carry all these things. So it was just my whole team up and down, getting the right size of the mattress into the right room, making sure that it's the same as it is on Opera.
That sounds a lot of hard work, which is another lesson that hard work can be the most memorable and pays off. It's not just relationships, is it? Is as you said before, stepping up and working hard at it. And with that in mind, what if you were to isolate what makes a productive day productive for you? If you were to isolate the elements, what would be those key elements for you?
I think it's always knowing that you were there you were guest centric. At the end of all of it is you're there to make a guest happy. So if you're running an operational department, that means you need to be organized. That means you need to have a really good team culture where there is no blaming and shaming. And I totally believe in that, because when people know that you've got their back and each other's back, every team can do anything they want. So as a leader, my priority is, what am I doing every day to build the culture of the team? And then I always think about, in terms of a daily tasks, I used to draw out what's urgent and what is a priority. So I do think about what is the most valuable action for that day, whether it is certain reporting for the GM or change of processes that we need to create to make sure the operation is more efficient. And that also means blocking out time every day for like brain work or creative work, where the office door is closed, my phone is on forward to my assistant or whoever it is, and we're like, unless it's super urgent, don't talk to me just for an hour or two. Because I believe as a leader, as I think in any environment, if you are leading people, if you don't do that work and block out the time, you're actually just giving your time away like to a million pieces, and at the end of the day, those million pieces do not come together in a puzzle.
That's a good advice of creative and critical thinking time, where you block. Do you do that every day, or is it specific times a week? Or
no, I would say I don't believe I did it every day, but it was definitely every week. At least 2 to 3 hours. And I used to have a really big whiteboard with my chart, what's urgent, what's priority, and actually what needs my time the most. In time, I would say attention. It's more than anything.
I think as you talk, the people element keeps on coming as a theme throughout everything you say, but also looking after, it's good to look after other people, but also look after yourself and cultivate those good habits, I think. And this is what you're trying to say. Now,
definitely.
I'm thinking, with all the things that you've done, still the hospitality context is there and it's alive. What is it? Is it the love for the people? Is it the love for the industry? What is it that keeps you still grounded in hospitality?
I like free hotel stays.
I like that one.
No, jokes, although I do get some of those. I think because when people see that one thing leads to another, they'll always think of you as that hospitality person, even though there's different aspects of it. So when people reach out to me, I can see those links very easily, and somehow it just always pivots back to hospitality. And I think once you have some kind of working experience in hospitality, it's very relatable. Like, these are skills that are very transferable in any industry. And I think once, somehow, I don't know if it's because of LinkedIn or anything, people keep coming back to me, and I think I probably communicate the best because of like knowing what I know.
Brilliant. And now we are at a time where society is changing dramatically in the way we interact with each other, the way we use digital platforms. But you've always been, even though you said you're not a techie, you've always been involved in this sort of digital innovation and digital disruption. Has anything changed for you these days, where last year we met and we did, you did a talk with my students live, and this year we have to do this sort of, it's better than nothing, but it is different. Have you experienced this difference?
I miss meeting people in person. 100%. I think talking to you is lovely. Talking to a group of people when there is a lot of feedback, I think as a speaker, it draws more out of me. So, and I'm sure you experience that as someone who, teaches on a daily basis. It's totally missing the in-person interaction.
It's the body language and the eye contact, isn't it? Where you get signals where, something ticks or something and they want to move on. It's
like,
hard.
I think, yes, absolutely. It's so hard on Zoom. So yeah, I think that is a huge part. The other thing for me personally is time zone differences.
Yeah,
So I wake up super early in the morning to make sure that I can get on a call with Japan or whatever,
yeah.
and on Hong Kong. So now that after daylight savings, it's horrible.
It's good for me. I must admit, my wife was saying, "Oh, there we go again." I said, "Well, it's great for me because I get daylight. I wake up super early and we go out for walks with my dog Wolfie." So I
Yeah.
have to say, for farmers and for Yanis, the daylight saving is a saver because we can go out very early and walk in the wood. But I can see
Yeah.
how it can make it harder for mental health of people who just see darkness throughout the day. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, this brings us nicely into to my next question, which is about what do you think might be some of the biggest issues that hospitality is facing today
Mm.
in this current environment?
Yeah. Cash flow.
Cash flow.
Cash flow, I would say, is the number one issue because there's only so much cash that you would sit on
Yeah,
to be able to pay everyone. And regardless of the country that you're in, whether there are any furlough schemes, is you don't have sales, you don't have cash coming in. So that is unfortunately what we're seeing today. Businesses closing, people being made redundant. I personally have had a lot of friends being made redundant, and it's regardless of which layer of hierarchy you're in,
yeah,
it's the same. So I think, oh, tough one. That unless travel resumes,
mm,
I don't know if there's any way out because you can't Uber eat a hotel stay. Yes, there are opportunities where you can develop other revenue streams in selling some of the assets or like the branded things that is part of your business. But you know I can't get on a flight. Even if I can get on a flight, I have to do a 14-day isolation there and back.
and someone who's worked all their life in running a hotel or a restaurant, it's very very hard for them to get out of the mindset of diversifying, right? But
Very.
I think that's a good advice. I mean, it's hard to say anything. What can you do? But I think diversifying and finding new ways of revenue, if you can do it, and that's why I keep on saying to everybody, upskill now, and your IT skills and how you communicate digitally might make a difference for your business. But yeah, we all know
A
it's super
hundred
hard.
percent. There's literally nothing that you can't learn online these days.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
go on places like Udemy, any kind of digital skills is
Yeah,
there. Like I sometimes go on courses just to patch up some of my knowledge so that I can talk to tech people a little bit more fluently.
mm,
But diversity of skills, 100%. I recently read a really good book called Range by David Epstein.
okay.
Range is about the diversification of skills. So the epilogue was Tiger Woods versus Roger Federer. Two greatest players of all time in their own sports. Tiger Woods only played golf since age of 3.
Mm,
Roger Federer is literally like most people. He played every type of sports under the sun that involved a ball before age 14. And then he decided, oh, I think I like tennis more.
yeah.
But like that allowed him to be, great champion for so many years. But the point was that the idea that we think we stick to one skill and that's how we're going to last the end of our career, I don't think that's going to work.
Uh,
World's changing too fast. We're being, you can be phased out very, very quickly.
Definitely going to look that book up, and I must say at this point I'm sitting with the Federer's camp.
Most people are. I just don't know why society everywhere in general still believes in that you need to be an ultra specialist to be recognized as good.
Yeah,
But I'm like, if you can have many strings to a bow, you're a great asset. That also kind of allows you to see a little bit bigger where, yes, there's a crisis. What else can I do?
Yeah, that's I've been told off by some of my mentors because I'm a generalist, and they say you gotta have that one thing, Jan, is where the world knows you if you want to get that professorship chair. And I said, I don't care about the professorship chair. I care about having fun and if I can help others. And I think that's what you've been doing as well, which is
Yeah.
fantastic. And with that in mind, what is there anything positive that you think has come out of this current scenario, current situation?
A lot.
Okay.
I think in terms of businesses on a high street, anywhere that has like a physical kind of location, I think we're in a process of filtering out the worst from the bad and the good from the best.
Okay.
Because I think the worst will not survive, and the mediocre ones, I don't think they will survive. So you either, as a business, have to be super good at delivering your product services, meeting the needs or exceeding the needs of your customers, or you'll probably go out of business because there's so much competition. Like, locally, as soon as lockdown had lifted, for me, you'll see people wanting to spend money in the local restaurants, but only the best ones.
Yeah.
The meat,
There was
right?
there was value for money before this, and now there's value for time, isn't there?
Yes.
That's what consumers
Yeah.
are looking at.
If I'm spending the same amount of money, I want to have the best experience I can.
Yeah.
That also means that they have to spend on digital marketing,
Yeah.
spending on ads, getting in my face on all the different platforms, being really good on Instagram, just on social media in general, so that I know you're still surviving and I want to support you.
Yeah.
But the ones who have not evolved into advertising online, I don't know you exist anymore. And if you were very mediocre before, it's not going to even be on my short list.
That's great. So you heard it here first, folks. We're entering a new era of super efficient hospitality. Is that it?
Yes, honestly, you're running on a skeleton team.
Yeah.
It's hard. And there's more to do for like the customer, downloading things, ordering on your app or whatnot. There's more that's demanded of the customer, but at the same time, everything else needs to be super good.
Brilliant. I'll go one last question and then I'll let you go, I promise. And this is all about our students that are listening in. And really, if you think about the young graduates who are about to graduate with a hospitality degree in a few months, what advice would you give them?
Network.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say anyone that, okay, let's start at the beginning. I think being very certain about what are the areas that you want to try out and not saying no to opportunities, even if it doesn't look like an opportunity at first.
Yeah.
I'll always say, think a lot bigger, think 10 years ahead, not just now. Like, spending a couple of months in a dodgy place is actually okay if it allows you to just make money to keep going.
Yeah.
And then making sure that you're spending your spare time efficiently.
Yeah.
Learning things, so hence this is what I mean where grow your network, reach out to people that see if you can be introduced to other industries, for example, just for the time being. And if there are any kind of opportunities where, whether it's be an apprentice program, like things that you actually wouldn't have wanted to do, especially since you've got a degree, you have to adopt the mindset, like you're starting from zero. It doesn't matter. No one cares about your qualification, especially at this kind of time. Are you going to be hardworking enough? Are you going to be teachable enough where you're willing to learn and you're willing to try out new things? So yeah, I think it's definitely a very tough one. But I don't think it's not what other people haven't been through. Like I think in terms of recession and all that, there's a cycle of 10 to 11 years. It will pass. And I think the more that,
that's a great advice, that you just keep in mind that the light at the end of the tunnel will come, but you need to be open keep your mind open. And people, the theme that we started with and seems to
Mm,
be very strong throughout your career, ends up being, again, the advice: network early,
yeah,
don't wait until you graduate, start now, start yesterday. Cherie,
definitely.
it has been such a pleasure. It always is a pleasure, and I do follow you and I see your wonderful achievements as the months progress. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Keep rocking the world. Stay in touch, and have a lovely weekend. Thank you.
Yes, and you.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Bye bye.